Hello, folks. My name is Mark Sellen, and this is another episode of The Converging Zone. And today our guest is Gaylon Ross, who's authored a book, The Elite Serial Killers of Lincoln, JFK, RFK, and MLK. There's a lot of K's in there. It's our special K book, you might say. And what we're talking about today is the assassination of John F. Kennedy. We've just went through 50 years of history, and we're trying to decide, have we found out any more? We'd like to welcome again Gaylon Ross. Thank you for coming to the show, Gaylon.
It's all my pleasure, Mark.
And I've got one more guest we're going to try to bring on here. A good friend of mine, and his name's Todd Fisher. He's been a longtime director, producer. I don't even know how to give you enough credit there, Todd, but we'd like to welcome you to the show, and you're going to help me drill Sergeant Gaylon here.
Sounds good.
Good to see you, Todd.
So, Todd, one of the things I was thinking here, and maybe you can help me out, articulating this, is there's so many topics on Kennedy. So much of it is misinformation. So much of it is always trying to be debunked by the local media, or the national media, I should say. What do you think about what you've watched from Kennedy?
Hollywood has had a love affair with Kennedy for forever, since long before he was assassinated. He and Jackie were a beautiful couple. You couldn't have cast a better person to play the part of President of the United States than John F. Kennedy and his wife Jackie. And so there's never been a greater love affair. Some have tried to liken it to Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, but that to me would be an injustice to the Kennedys. But the bottom line is that ever since Kennedy's assassination, of course, there's been a huge love affair with telling this story. It is one of these stories that just will not go away.
Sure.
And everybody, of course, has an opinion about it. But obviously, there's always been these giant gaping holes in this story. Was there some additional shooters? Is it assassination? Is it not? Is it this lone guy sitting up in the book depository? I mean, those are, I think, largely speaking, the world is still unclear as to what happened there. And as much as I'm sure they would love this story to go away, it just seems to keep going.
I think one of the things we talked about the other night when we were talking was Oliver Stone. How factual, how much of the Oliver Stone story can we really count on as far as what happened not in the murdering of John F. Kennedy, but the setup of the whole thing? Did they get it right? Did Oliver Stone get it right, Gaylon? What do you think?
I don't have any problem with the Stones movie. It just did not deal with the shooting that day and did not deal with the secret meeting at all.
It's something they might not have known about,
He
you think?
didn't know about it.
There was a lieutenant or some type of military person called Fletcher Prouty that was a kind of a key character in the Oliver Stone movie, and I think he was played by Donald Sutherland, if I remember right. Does Fletcher Prouty sound familiar to you?
Yeah, the name is familiar, but I don't remember what his role was.
Fletcher Prouty was very key in the movie from Oliver Stone of setting up, why. Why how could they have gotten to him with all the security? And Fletcher Prouty at the time was supposed to be in charge of the security, and he was taken off that assignment, sent overseas, and he was out of the way. And Donald Sutherland's character kind of talks about that. And I don't know if you had any.
More recently, they've been making newer films that have allegedly take on more information about these things, and they're still asking that question. In fact, there was one where it was, implying, of course, that the mob had something to do with it. They were very upset with Bobby Kennedy and his involvement. He betrayed them, said he was going to do one thing and did another, and that pissed them off. And, they're not good people to piss off.
I've heard that.
They're great to work for. My mother tells me there was no better group of people running Las Vegas than when the mob ran Las Vegas. You never had a problem getting paid. Everything was handled beautifully. When the corporations took over, it went downhill. I think that might be also true of some other things in this country.
Your mom is who again?
Sorry about that. My mother's Debbie Reynolds, the actress.
Debbie Reynolds. Okay.
My father is Eddie Fisher, and he actually had an interesting connection to Kennedy through a doctor by the name of Max Jacobson, who was also the doctor to Hoover and also to Jackie. And he was giving everybody these vitamin shots that had some additional ingredients in it. And later he lost his license for that. But the notion that he was actually shooting up the President of the United States with speed is kind of a sketchy thing that went on for a long time. But my dad was in that same circle.
Well, one thing I want to do here, Todd, and I think you'll find this interesting because you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this, and that's the Mac Wallace connection. So if you don't mind, tell us about Mac Wallace. Tell us what you know about this guy.
Mac Wallace was a graduate from University of Texas. He was president of his graduating class. Somehow, because of his standing in the class, he was introduced to Lyndon Johnson, and somehow they set up I don't know whether it's a friendship or a business arrangement or what, but he became Johnson's #1 hitman.
Hitman? Oh, wait. What do you mean hitman?
He killed at least 16 people in the state of Texas directly for Lyndon Johnson at his orders.
We're not talking baseball.
No, we're talking about putting them under the ground.
Serious
Underground.
Why would Lyndon Johnson want anybody else dead?
Lyndon Johnson called Cliff Carter, who was his #1 aide, and said, there's a guy in Austin that owns a pitch and putt golf course there, and he's sleeping with Josephus Johnson, my sister, and also with Mac Wallace, his wife. And so he sent Mac to Austin to take care of the problem. Mac Wallace just showed up, parked his car right in front of the pitch and putt office.
Yeah.
Walked in, didn't say a word, just put out a .38 and shot him 3 or 4 times and turned around, got in his car and drove off. But several people got the license number.
So they're witnesses to this whole thing.
Yeah, and so then they got hold of the police. The police arrested him before he got out of town. And the jury found him guilty of murder in the 1st degree.
Okay. Who was his attorney?
John Cofer was also Johnson's #1 attorney in Austin.
Okay, so there's the connection right there.
So Cofer represented Mac Wallace.
Okay.
And so the jury found him guilty, and the judge says, I accept your finding of guilty, and I hereby sentence him to 6 months suspended sentence, and I release him to his freedom right now.
Now, that is some political pull.
It sounds like somebody from Hollywood.
Besides his wife, he was sleeping with Josephus Johnson, who was Lyndon Johnson's sister. She was a drunk and very loose.
Okay.
And
was she getting Johnson in any type of trouble?
When she'd get drunk, she'd talk about Johnson's private and personal life. And so Johnson called Cliff Carter and said, I'm getting tired of that blankety-blank sister of mine. I want you to call Mac and take care of it. I've had enough of it.
Okay.
Johnson invited Mac Wallace to Christmas dinner. During the meal, Mac put poison in Josephus' food. She died at 3:20 the following morning. Local doctor conducted an autopsy by phone, and they didn't have an autopsy or anything, and they buried her that same day.
How does Mac Wallace fit into the Kennedy assassination? How does he fit into this?
Mac set up all the gunmen. They were mafia hitmen.
Now, hang on. Refresh my memory. Sorry.
Right.
Mac was at the meeting the night before.
That's right.
Did you catch that, Todd?
Here it is. This is fascinating.
He's at the meeting the night before, and hey, hang on. Did Madeline Brown know him?
Yeah, she knew him very well.
She did.
Yeah, she liked to shoot skeet, and she often saw him out the shooting range. In fact, 2 days before the killing, she was out shooting skeet, and so Mac Wallace was over on the rifle range, and she said that he was hitting every shot, dead shot, in a standing position.
Is this Billy Soule that's telling you this?
Billy Soule gave me all the details of the shooting.
He gave you all the details of the shooting.
That's right, and he was in the secret meeting, so he gave me all the details of the secret meeting.
So do we actually know the names of the people that shot Kennedy, or we don't know who hit him, but do we know the gunman?
In my book, I name all the shooters, where they were, and there was a radio operator at all 4 shooting positions. There were 6 shooters. From the 6th floor of the Texas Scuba Depository Building was a Loy Factor, and he was shooting from the 5th window from the east end of the 6th floor. Mac Wallace was shooting from the shooter's nest. They claimed Oswald fired 3 shots from that position, and actually Oswald was on the 2nd floor eating lunch at the time of shooting.
Hey, I got a question for him. What's the idea of that he's got Oswald sitting in the eating lunch? How does he know that?
That comes from actually the Warren Commission testimony. There's a fellow that walked through the employee break room at
Right. Like just seconds.
12:30,
Right.
04.
Just like right after the shooting.
And so Oswald was sitting over at the table eating his lunch.
Well, what did Billy Soule say?
Billy Saul said that Oswald was on the 6th floor, but he was up there. He worked for the Texas School, but
Right, he worked there.
And he was seen there at 11:55. From there, he went down to the break room. In fact, he told one of his fellow employees, says, "I'm going to take my break," and he went down to the 2nd floor, and so. As the shooting took place, there's a motorcycle patrolman heard the shots. He saw pigeons fly from the roof of the depository building. He wheeled over and parked his bike in front of the building and ran up the stairs and ran into a fellow named Truly, who was
Right.
building manager, and said, "I think the shots came from the top of the building. Let's go up there." And so Truly looked over to the elevators, and elevators weren't there, so he said, "We'll have to go up the stairs." And so they trotted up the stairs and got up the 2nd floor, and they came right up to the employee break room. And there's a glass window in the door, and Officer Baker saw him in there, and he opened the door and says, "What are you doing in here?" And Truly says, "Don't worry about him, he works here." And so they went on up the stairs and went up to the top of the building.
You know, how many shooters? We've identified 2 of them.
Yeah.
And there was 2 in the school book depository. The building across the street from the school book.
A deputy sheriff on top of the Dallas County Records building, and a radio operator. In each of the locations, there's a radio operator.
Okay.
On the 2nd floor of the Daltex building, there was a fellow named Brading was on the 2nd floor of the Grand Daltex building.
Yeah.
Then you have John Ernst and Clyde Faust behind the picket fence. So that's 6 people.
Obviously, all of this makes a lot of sense from a military tactical perspective. If you're really going to do this, you're not going to just send one loose cannon guy, who got a few screws loose to do the deed. If indeed it was ordered from higher powers, then you would obviously send a tactical squad that was super well rehearsed and well equipped, and the story would be flushed out like a quote-unquote military operation.
Sure. Were you aware that Oswald made an attempt on a general?
It was General Walker. He was active in John Birch Society, and for some reason, I don't know why, but they claimed that Oswald showed up and fired a shot at him. Missed him, but he did fire a shot at him.
My understanding is that is fairly well collaborated, and, and more recently, in this more recent Kennedy film, they showed that reenactment.
Really?
But I guess my question is, was he at that point? Was he just on his own as a communist sympathizer, or at that point? Was that part of the plan also to set him up as the patsy?
Is that all part of setting Oswald up?
Oswald was a patsy.
You talk about from the Democratic Convention meeting in 1960, they started planning the demise of Kennedy back then.
And the real heavy planning went on May 1963.
It started early.
Yeah.
They had him out, passing out pamphlets and.
That's right.
So Mac Wallace now, one of the shooters.
From the shooter's nest.
From the shooter's nest. After the assassination, they go up and start taking fingerprints, and every fingerprint on that 6th floor, from my understanding, from what I remember about this, they were all identified except for one. And for years, that one went unidentified. Okay?
All right.
And I believe, I don't remember the year, was it 1998?
98.
Mark Collin decides to try to get a hold of the fingerprints from the school book depository and match them up. And he matched them up with, somehow he got a fingerprint of Mac Wallace, matched it up, and they matched perfectly. Am I correct?
That's right. The guy that did the fingerprint analysis had 27 years experience with the FBI
27 years.
in fingerprint identification.
Has there ever been any research done as the connection between all the shooters?
They're just random mafia people that Mac Wallace selected.
How did Mac Wallace die?
He supposedly died in a one-car accident when he ran into a bridge abutment over in East Texas. There's just a short article in the local paper that Mac Wallace was killed on Highway so-and-so.
Yeah, really?
One of Hollywood's favorite techniques is, you bump the guy off and then you pour alcohol in him and on him.
Oh, yeah.
And act like it was a drunk driver, and then you drop a piano on him to make sure he's gone.
You drop a piano on. Did they drop a piano on Mac Wallace just to make sure?
Well, there's another guy that was at secret meeting, Clint Peoples, also died in a one-car accident.
Yes.
Hit a bridge over in East Texas.
Same bridge?
In the neighborhood, but he was going to meet Billy Saul, and they were going to talk about the JFK killing. Peoples was a sergeant in the Texas Rangers and was U.S. Marshal.
Right.
And was in attendance at the secret meeting the night before Kennedy was killed.
Why did he have to be knocked out? I mean, what's the advantage of knocking him off?
He knew who was involved.
But at that point, why wouldn't you just knock off Billy Soul?
That's another interesting story. When they were talking about knocking off Henry Marshall, and that's another killing,
Okay.
Billy Saul had Johnson and Cliff Carter meet him at his hotel room in Dallas. In the meeting, they talked about they need to get rid of this fellow Henry Marshall down in Hearn because he was trying to connect Billy Saul with Johnson.
Oh.
And Cliff Carter was there, and he said, Cliff, you take care of this guy down in Hearn.
Okay.
The next day, Billy Saul called Cliff Carter and said, Cliff, I need to tell you this, that I recorded that meeting that we were in last night, and the reason I did it was for my own insurance. In case Johnson ever decides that I'm in the way and he wants to stick back on me,
Okay.
you tell him that I've got a recording that it will immediately surface, and so that's my insurance. And so Cliff says, you're playing a dangerous game, but I guarantee you I won't tell Johnson unless he asks me to, and then I'll warn him that it could bring all this out in the open.
So, and Billy Soul told you that?
Billy Saul says, I've got a tape.
Can you believe that?
Amazing. Well, it's just another one of these pieces to the puzzle.
I've been hearing about this conspiracy stuff for decades, and like everybody else. And after a while, you just kind of get tired of the information. But ever since I started watching some of your stuff, and now that I've met you and hearing from you directly, it just all makes sense.
It's all absolute fact.
Yeah.
From 3 separate sources.
Wow.
2 of them on video. Well, Billy, I want to thank you for being willing to provide this information, because you were in the meeting, you know what went on. You're making the facts known to the people so that we can finally clear this issue up.
The truth will always rise, and I defy anyone. I'll take the death penalty if they'll tell anybody that anything I've said is not wrong. No one can ever realize the power that Napoleon had or Hitler had, and neither will they realize the power of the complicated mind of Lyndon Johnson. And it will be proved in history that all the killing come directly from Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson was a man that believed he was directed by higher power to become ruler for a time of the land like a king. And for them to come down Texas, man, it'd just be like a greyhound going into a bulldog's territory. And the way he'd done Lyndon, well, you can't really have any mercy on him, because anybody dumb enough, and he thought he might have been powerful enough over the United States to do what he wanted to. But Texas wasn't his territory. His territory was marked for Lyndon Baines Johnson. And here he comes. And he was saying who was going to ride with who. Ralph Garber was going to ride with this one or that one, and come down to dictate orders. And it just didn't work. My downfall was all due to Robert Kennedy. Tried to get me to testify and give me immunity against Lyndon Johnson. They could not carry the South without him. But after he got in as vice president, Bobby hated him and wanted to get rid of him. If I'd have said this 10 or 15 years ago, nobody would believe me. People are not stupid now because of the media.
It's a real pleasure working with you on this.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to get the word out.
Well, that's all I want.
All right.
This stuff isn't important just because we solve the mystery. It's important because if we don't understand it, it could happen again. And we don't want it to, not in our lifetime, or not in your kid's lifetime. Thank you again for being on the Converging Zone with us, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Todd.